Grunk Funk. This piece is for one of the pieces for the initial exam and has some nice patterns working through and using different dynamics. So working through from the very beginning, use your notation key if you're unsure as to which of any instruments are. A reminder, if you've not gone over this, watch the initial rudiments to reaffirm which instruments are written on which space or line. And we've got those 5 lines, 4 spaces, we call them the stave, and our instruments are spread across there. So to start with, we've got a bass, monkey on the bass, and then a snare. So bass, snare, and then we do 2 taps on the hi-hat. They're nice and steady because they're cats, cat, cat. So bass, snare, cat, cat. You'll notice this is exactly the same in the second bar and the third bar. The difference is that we're going to do them at a different dynamic each time. So MP stands for mezzo piano. Remember, piano is quiet, so the mezzo means a moderate. So not really quiet, just nice and gentle. Then our mezzo forte, more of a normal sound, so bring it up a little level, and then the forte, you can be a bit louder for that one. Save a little bit, you don't want to be too loud, because if you look all the way at the bottom of the page, we've got a fortissimo marking. The fill at the end of the first line goes around the drums of the kit. So we start on the snare drum, and then the high tom, the middle tom, and the floor tom. If you do these with single strokes, it makes it really easy just to move around. So right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Our second line looks like it's going to start the same as the first, except we only do 1 tap on the hi-hat, and then we move that right hand to hit one of the tom-toms, and we do them each in turn. So it will go bass, snare, hi-hat, and then floor, then bass, snare, hi-hat, middle, bass, snare, hi-hat, and then the high tom. Obviously, again, we've got those increasing dynamics, so starting off MP for the first one, and then mezzo forte, and then forte for your third bar. Our fill in the last bar does a tom and then a bass drum. A tom, then a bass drum, tom, bass drum. Make sure you keep these really nice and even. We use our right hand to go around the toms, bass drums in between, and finish with a left on the snare. So it will be high, bass, mid, bass, floor, bass, snare. Keep them nice and steady. At B, we start to play more of a drum beat. We've got a crash with the bass to open, then the hi-hat and snare. Then we do a bass, tap, snare. So it will go crash, snare, bass, tap, snare. In the second bar, we've got the same type of rhythm, bass, snare, but then we do bass, tap, and then another bass. So just go over that bit a bit. Feels a bit strange to do the bass, snap, bass. We want to play a snare drum at the end, but there isn't one. It's the bass drum. In the third bar, that one's not too bad. Same as the first bar, but without the crash. So bass, snare, bass, tap, snare. Our fill at the end of the third bar has an armadillo to start. That armadillo is on the snare drum. So armadillo on the snare drum, and then a high tom monkey before a bass, and a crash with the snare this time to finish. So armadillo, monkey, bass, crash. Crash with the snare. The little marks over the crash cymbals when they're played, we call an accent mark. So that means to emphasise that one a little bit more. The crash cymbal already is quite noisy, so you'll be emphasising it just by hitting it normally. Our very last line uses the ride cymbal. You can see that the cross at the top has just moved down a bit, so it now has the top line of the stave through it. So we go through bass with the ting, snare with the ting, and then bass and ting twice before snare. Ting, 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 ting. Bass, snare, bass, snare. The next bar, bass, snare, snare, snare. Take your time over this, don't rush it just because they're all crotchets. Okay, keep them nicely together so that we don't end up with a bass and a ting. We want to be like a puppet and make them happen at the same time. Then we do the same as the first bar, bass, snare, bass, snare. And our fill at the end uses single strokes around the drum kit, a right on the snare, left on the high tom, right on the middle tom, left on the floor tom, and finishing with the bass. Dun, 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 bass. And a crash with a snare to finish. A nice little ending there. And you've got the crescendo going through it, leading to your crash cymbal, so you can be really noisy by the end. I've recorded a performance of this one, so have a listen through, see if you can pick out all the different dynamics and follow where the fills come if you're getting a bit stuck on those ones. Good luck. Grunk Funk.